I've had to cut it short, and because of this, and seems like we've had a lot to talk about. All right,
I'll announce it. We are live on Facebook, everybody, and whenever you're ready, Kyle.
okay. Well, good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the Committee of Public Works of the Village of Shorewood Hills. Today is Tuesday, December 9th, 5:30 p.m. And I think next we do a roll call. We have Tim here, we have Bob, Tom, Christine, myself, and Austin is missing, and who else? Rob. Rob is not here. I thought he was gonna show up.
He said he wasn't appointed,
Rob hasn't been appointed yet, so
Oh, he hasn't been.
because I asked him if he was coming, because he helped me with this, and he said he still hasn't been.
Well, I asked John, and John said Rob had been.
Well,
maybe-
Okay, so obviously we don't, okay. Well, I know there's been questions about the appointment of people to various committees, and I think that hasn't all been resolved yet, so that may be part of the holdup. Okay, but I think we have a quorum. We have 5. So I think we can at least go ahead. And we have Barry Hanchek and Tim Pierce here from Town and Country. Steve, Steven, I don't know why I always think of Pierce when I mention you, but. Okay, Nicole, are we in compliance with open meeting law?
Yeah.
And the meeting has been properly noted?
Yes.
Thank you. I think the first thing is to approve the minutes of September 9th. We're in the packet. Do I have a motion to approve those? Tim, make that motion. We have a second. Bob is seconding. Any discussion on that or amendments to those meeting minutes? Okay, hearing none, let's vote to approve those minutes. All in favor, say aye. Raise your hand. Yeah, it looks like 5-0, Nicole. Anybody online that might, from the public that might want to speak? I don't see anybody. We have no one in the room, so I think we can move ahead. I think the first thing is our Public Works Superintendent. As you know, we haven't met in a couple of months, and that was, as I said in the notes, a request from staff because we were so short-staffed. It was hard for us to be able to have the minutes recorded and everything set up. So I think we have a fair amount on our plate. But we'll start with Terry. Terry, what have you been up to the last 3 months?
Well, that was difficult putting together this. I could have done 4 pages worth, but I just kind of did some of the highlights. Obviously, fall time for us means leaf collection. We ended with about 150 loads, which is close to average, maybe 20, 30 short. That first snowfall came a little early for us, and it packed a punch with 10 inches or whatever they said. Yeah, any other highlights? We're fully staffed now. I guess, I don't even know, did you guys know I lost a guy and now I've hired one? I don't remember when.
I don't think everybody's.
So we had a guy leave us, must have been early September. But we filled his spot. Kyle Burr is his name, and so far he's working out very well. He came in right in the middle of leaf season and did a fantastic job, and his first time plowing was that 10-inch storm, and he did great with that. So he's faced some difficult challenges so far and has done well. Yeah, I guess otherwise I can take any questions, but we fixed a pretty major water service leak that we found earlier this summer. I think I let you guys know that, but I'm not sure we had it fixed when we last met. So we got that fixed, and it ended up being about 30,000 gallons a day, which when we use about 160, I guess you guys do the math. I'm not a mathematician, but that's, 10 to 15% right there. We fixed in one week.
20%.
We don't know how long that's been leaking for. Not being on a main, it was on somebody's service. A little bit difficult to find, so that's a good thing for our water department, obviously, because we buy all our water. So anything we can't sell back to the customer, this was before the meter, so it was money being lost by the village. So it was a good one to find. Yeah, I guess any questions?
I was curious, when you have a water main, break that big, the water doesn't bubble up to the ground?
Not a lot. With all the bedrock in this village, a lot of it just seeps into cracks, depending on how big it is and the time of the year. You know, a lot of times in the winter they'll surface, but not always then either, so.
Well, that must've been tough to find.
Yeah, so we brought in 2 different leak detecting companies. And ended up finding it, and it was in the backyard of somebody else's house. It was a very difficult situation.
Wow.
They ended up just running a new line out. The house is up on topping, so they just ran a new line out to topping. You know, it was a good expense for the homeowner, but you know, it had to be done, and they worked with us very well, so. Yeah,
Nice.
There were a total of 3 initially, weren't there, or were the
So-
other ones more minor?
yeah, one was a hydrant leak, which I just went and operated the hydrant and could have had a piece of gravel stuck in there or something that fixed right away. The other one was a very small leak in the middle of topping. It ended up being very difficult. We dug it once, didn't find anything. It was a dry hole. I was confused, scratching my head, thought maybe that was another service leak. We investigated that. Didn't really turn out to be much. Brought this second leak detector guy back and he said, there's a leak here, I'm telling you. So we dug again and got down under the pipe this time. And there was a small leak right where we dug the first time, so. We learned some lessons, but it was another one found.
So,
Yeah, other than that, you know, we're getting ready for winter now and
oh, it's here.
it's here, yeah. It's
Yeah, if you hadn't
it's
noticed.
too early for this cold and snow, but I mean, good news, we're gonna start the hockey flooding Thursday, so hopefully by next weekend, we can have some skating and I think only one time in my 13 years we had it open by Christmas, so if things keep going the way they are, it should be open by Christmas, so.
Yeah, even the lake is beginning to. freeze.
Yeah,
Terry, I do have one comment to make. We did have a, email from a resident. I don't know, some of you may have seen on Facebook, Dave Benferrato had sent out a note that he was hoping for people in the village to adopt a fire hydrant. Because when we get these snows like this, you know, if you have a hydrant in front of your house, maybe you can keep it clear in case there's an emergency and it's easier for the firefighters to get access to it. And Rob was gonna talk about that tonight, but since he's currently not on the committee, I'll just ask, the suggestion was to put together a list of the locations of all of our hydrants. I assume we have that on map somewhere, or you know where everything is. You know how many hydrants are in the village?
98 to 100.
Oh, is there that many? If you had is that in a list somewhere?
Tim could probably help with that.
I think you could get something and then I could get it off to this homeowner, I maybe she was gonna, well, I'm hoping that what she wanted to do was go out and solicit and do a little more advertisement, and have kind of a sign up list.
Mhm.
How much that would need to be coordinated with the administration, I'm not sure, but try to get people assigned to that, so.
And when you say adopt means take the responsibility of it, clear it?
Yeah, so if there's a big snow like that we have, that you shovel from the street into the hydrant and around the hydrant,
Yeah.
so the firefighters have access.
Nice.
I have one in front of my house and,
Yeah, a lot of times neighbors will team up, like you do it this snowfall, do it next snowfall, depending on where the hydrant is and whatnot, but a lot of communities do it. And we do try to clear some hydrants when we get caught up and need something to do, but that hasn't happened yet, so, but
and you certainly don't like to bury them either. I'm
Right.
sure you're trying to. Okay, so that was one thing I wanted to bring up, but, that'd be great. Give you something, Tim. So, any other questions for Terry?
Maybe it's not a question, but like the lights on the Hayden house, is that new or did I just miss that last year?
no, they're new. So it's something we're gonna try in coordination with the red and green flag, open skate, closed skate. I was gonna match the lights, the color of the flag. We had some people say, I can't see it on this side of the hiding house or whatnot, but so for now, I just turned them on some Christmas colors just because we have them. So, just something we're playing around with, but
Yeah, that's great.
Eventually it'll coordinate with the skating flag.
Yeah, it looks nice.
Yeah, has anybody noticed the top of the Christmas tree is out?
I
Nope.
don't.
All right, I shouldn't have said that online. Brand new lights last year, one strand's out, so we just have no lift and no way to get up there, so we're just gonna have to do something next year, but you don't notice it at night. The tree goes another 10 feet higher or so.
Okay, Tim, I think I had listed under here some of the planned projects. Maybe you could, talk briefly about, or you and Terry, what, we do have planned, what the status is.
Yeah, no problem. Yes, so, the village identified a few different projects for construction or work next year. Just wanted to chat about those. Go over here with the committee briefly, and then, also with a mind to early on in the project here, it's useful to consider the village's complete streets ordinance, that was adopted, I believe, in 2021. It is posted on the village website. If you just, Google, Village of Shorewood Hills, complete streets, you'll come across it pretty quickly. But one of the things that it kind of looks to do is identify any pedestrian, bicycle, sort of alternative street use, projects or treatments that might become a part of various projects. So I wanted to make sure that this committee was, number one, aware, you guys probably already all are, of that ordinance. And number two, thinking about that specifically with regards to the village's public works projects that are coming up next year. So to that end, we've got 3 main projects. I'll just briefly kind of go through those. If anybody has any questions or comments, certainly keep it pretty casual here and just feel free to hop in. I'm going to pop them up on the screen for that shows up here. There we go. So Hunter Hill, folks may or may not be familiar with where this is. It's a pretty isolated little street. It is in pretty rough shape. As you can imagine, streets like this don't see a lot of attention over the years, given how isolated they are. I've got the approximate in red here. It's a pretty treed in area. So the actual aerial photo here doesn't do a very good job of showing us where the street is in an easy way, especially on this screen. But the red outline kind of actually is approximately the border of maybe the project limits. You'll note that that's somewhat different than where the county parcel lines come in, which is the kind of yellow lines here. So we'll be identifying that during kind of site survey and project identification. But to that end, Hunter Hill is this kind of short stretch up here. It serves a couple of properties, but has very few actual driveway accesses off of it. And the scope here in general is to pulverize the street, make base improvements as necessary. So we'll test roll it with a loaded dump truck and identify places where it needs to actually be subcut and truly improved to like an 18-inch section or something. And then the other part that was kind of identified by Terry and his staff is there's a area, I think, is it on the west side down here?
Yeah.
On the west side, which is kind of the downhill side as you're coming down Hunter Hill, where they have gotten kind of washouts over the years. So we were looking at putting in just a short stretch of curb and gutter along that stretch to help kind of control that water and kick it out into the street rather than kind of rutting out grassy areas and stuff like that. So that's what we have for Hunter Hill. Notably, again, back to very specifically addressing that complete streets discussion, we currently in the scope do not have any like pedestrian specific or cyclist specific amenities in this scope as it's currently identified in the village's CIP. Again, it's a pretty isolated stretch, and that's what we've got currently. Next project I've got here is Shorewood Boulevard. Pretty similar scope there. I'll go ahead and get that one up on the screen too. So on Sherwood Boulevard, the project limits here are basically north of the tracks to the four-way intersection up here. And you can kind of see, even in this aerial photo, where those natural limits would lie with regards to where that street has been kind of resurfaced and treated, to where we're looking at doing a pulverize and overlay project, or mill and overlay project kind of south of there. This project would involve, yeah, exactly that, just pavement replacement essentially. There was a couple of spots where we identified potential pedestrian and cyclist improvements. One thing just right off the bat, this crossing, frequent source of complaints, frequent source of pain for a lot of folks. And things such as like RRFBs have been floated out in the past. That is unfortunately not possible to install at this location. The actual crossing location is much too close to the railroad for the railroad to be able to permit the installation of an RRFB or a push button flashing kind of device at that location. You might be wondering to yourself, well, we've got them at Marshall Port, why not over here? And you'd be correct. The ones at Marshall Port were installed prior to, I think it's 2016, when a officer of the Commission of Railroads rule went into order, and anything prior to that date is allowed to be remain in place, but new locations can't be implemented within that kind of short distance there. So unfortunately, even though it's similar distance to that crossing, it cannot be implemented here. So that's that. We didn't have any, other than restriping that crossing, we don't have any other improvements planned at that location. Same for this crossing as well, assuming that the committee wants this to remain or there's no major changes that you guys are thinking about there. One thing we did note is on this radius here, where my cursor is, at that spot, it is currently a ramp that is done with like a diamond imprint, as opposed to like a truncated dome panel, which is kind of a truncated dome panel is like usually yellow or kind of a cast iron, rust color, gray color, and it would actually be domes imprinted in there. The diamond imprint is just a stamp kind of embedded in the concrete. Those stamps embedded in the concrete are no longer like ADA compliant. So we would look to maybe improve this portion of sidewalk here. Maybe at that point, put in a little curb and gutter along the radius here, just to kind of clean that up too. To do that there. I believe this one already has a diamond, or not a diamond imprint, but a truncated dome panel in it. So that one would be allowed to be remain.
How much is curb and gutter along this stretch?
This is generally all asphalt curb and gutter, or asphalt Carlson curb as we call it. It's not actually curb and gutter because it's just curb really. So
Okay, and it's not envisioned to put in through curb and gutter.
no, that's not part of this project scope currently. The budget would probably need to go up pretty significantly to have curb and gutter along the whole stretch. Yeah.
We get that manhole adjusted at that bike path.
For sure, yeah. Oh, that one, yeah, that's a good point, Terry. Yeah, absolutely. That one's been a source of complaints over the time
Right.
as well. Yeah, he's talking about this manhole right here.
Anybody who
gotta
rides a
say-
bike probably knows about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Manhole adjustments, water valve adjustments, anything like that, we always kind of include those as standard in the.
And we can talk some other time, but there's 3 manholes on the other side of the tracks
Mhm.
that I would love to do something with, even if it was just a square cut and repatch and. But
Yeah,
as long as they're here, now would be the time to add it. One
That's
right
not bad.
there.
not a bad
One's raised 1.5 inches and
over in this area.
those 3 right there, yeah. So I don't know.
Yep.
I just had that crosswalk painted, so I wouldn't want to disrupt that if I didn't have to, but.
Okay, cool. Any questions on this one, I guess?
Given how difficult that intersection with the bike path is there, and we can't put a push button, what are the rules? Can we put signage? Can we paint like green or whatever, the crossing, make it
Yes.
stand out more if it can't be a push button?
You can put signage, you can do alternative paint improvements and stuff like that, absolutely. Yeah, so if you wanted to look at pricing for green crosswalk here, I don't have that off the top of my head, but I know it's certainly more than a standard crosswalk, but it's probably not too far out of reach of the project budget, I would say. Beyond that, you know, the signage, we want to just double check with the railroad on anything that you guys put up there, because they will do inspections and they will tell Terry to take it down if it's not something that they like. So we would certainly want to double, triple check their rules and then also send it for their approval prior to actual implementation there.
And we would obviously have to coordinate with the railroad the day the work happens and, yeah.
Yeah, some of this will be in railroad right of way. So we'll need railroad insurance and the contractor will need to get railroad permitting to do that.
Anything this
When would
committee
you-
can do on that intersection or on that crossing, or is that all being handled?
Say that again?
For the intersection and painting or whatnot, is this something this committee could do or I could help with, or is that all being taken care of?
We can certainly take a look at that. I mean, if you guys tell us that, hey, we really want to look at green paint there essentially. or
Doesn't have to be
something
green,
like
I
that.
don't know what the committee thinks about.
Yeah, I mean,
Making that a little bit more obvious that there's, you know, and it's usually cyclists that are not from the village, I think, so that creates sometimes even more confusion about. What should,
I think the green paint is a great idea. I've heard it's uber expensive. Didn't you say, Terry, it was something like $7,000 for a?
Like Tim said, it's more costly, but if it's something everybody thinks would help, then yeah, now's the time, right?
It gets my attention when I drive through Madison.
Yeah.
I'm seeing the green, and especially with the railroad right there, I think it's not a good there's nothing we can do
no,
with that railroad being there. Till they leave.
in the future, if the Locust Street Path project ever does come to fruition and instead of a sidewalk in this location, there's a bike path. And if that bike path wraps around the corner and there's a more bike path crossing here, that could be potentially a nice improvement. You're still not gonna have, you know, a push button sort of activated thing, but at least the cyclist doesn't have to make kind of a merging with traffic sort of situation going on. And instead, they'd be able to remain path to path to path.
Yeah.
along the
Yeah,
intersection.
that would be a big,
Yes,
and if that was all painted, it would tell cyclists where they should be cycling.
right, because right now, it's.
They're all over
Feels
the
like it
place.
spits you out on
Yeah.
Shore Boulevard. You know, if you're new to this neighborhood, you don't even know the locust part of things that, oh, there's end here.
yeah, we can absolutely put it in the project for pricing. I mean, things like that, it's going to be a smaller cost on percentage wise on the overall project of milling and overlaying this stretch of Shorewood Boulevard. And if it came in incredibly expensive, then you could certainly make that evaluation, talk to the contractor about change orders, that kind of a thing to reduce the pricing. Or we could bid it as an alternate. That would be another way to kind of address it. Sometimes we'll, have a base bid that's just basically what you see on the screen for regular pavement marking, and then you'll have an alternate bid for, well, instead of this, do this, how much would that cost? And then you kind of get a menu of choices as the committee to choose from when you accept the bid. So that'd be another approach too, if you guys are concerned about it in that regard.
Will that median stay?
Yes, yeah, we don't have like kind of curb and gutter or concrete level improvements or things as a part of this scope. It's truly mostly focused on just that pavement, but since it is pavement markings as well, yeah.
Um,
The last one.
yeah, why don't you go ahead and talk about that, what your thought is, and I have a couple comments.
Yeah, the last project we had on the docket for 26 here was paving of the pool parking lot. And this one is on the village's list. I know it kind of hops between a couple of committees here probably in terms of like who's responsible for what. But that said, I believe they had a meeting last night. Terry, are you aware of the outcome of what they decided in terms of scope? I actually had to circle back with Dane on that.
It was kind of what you suggested. If something's gonna happen in the pool in the next year or two, maybe even 3, then the pavement should probably wait. If the reality of the pool project is 5, 7, 10 years, then yes, they want to get the blacktop. So somebody, and maybe we'll work on this on Saturday, but somebody needs to decide priority list. And you know, there was a couple members of the committee last night that said, oh, we expect something next year or 2027 at the pool. So I think they're even split a little bit, so.
Yeah, and that, to that regard too, the other thing I said to Dane, it was, you know, really if you're talking about work vans, getting into the work parking lot and just hauling in renovation equipment in a van, obviously that's not a concern.
So that's the other thing, the scope of the project. Is it a tear down? We've got to bring cranes and concrete trucks and steel in here. Yeah, you're probably gonna do some damage to your parking lot, but Tim said if it's just a remodel, there's some vans, a lumber truck, whatever, that any pavement would handle that, no problem. So I know Dane mentioned, if anything, maybe just doing that green part. In his eyes, that is the worst spot, and it is the worst spot. There's a bad drainage problem right there. So they could possibly do that. And, you know, if heavy equipment had to come in, keep them off that part, but you know, that's easier said than done too, so.
So that.
I guess personally, I hate to split it up into another section. That just leaves you another pavement joint. I think if the money's there and they want to do it, I think do it all or none. I guess that's my opinion, but my opinion doesn't mean sometimes.
Well, it needs more than you think, but no, I was gonna say the same thing. I know this has come up in the full committee. It's come up at the board at the last board meeting. It's obviously come up in this committee. And the board is having a special meeting this Saturday to talk specifically about our facilities. And as Terry said, I'm really hoping we'll come to some decision here, because in our CIP, in our 2026 budget, we have money allocated to do some of these projects. So, you know, we borrowed, I don't know how many millions of dollars, but you don't want to borrow it and then not use it. That's no good. And so we really need to get started on something. So I'm hoping that this Saturday we'll have a little more clarity on what to go forward with. And this is one thing under consideration. And obviously before that, the pool, you know, are we going to do something with the pool? And are we gonna do it next year, or is it gonna be 5 years down the road?
By the
Are we
pool,
gonna,
you mean the pool or the pool building?
the pool building itself?
Uh-huh.
And, cause there was a report called the Raymaker Report that came in and looked at the pool building and recommendations and some cost estimates for remodeling and, to tear it down and rebuild a new building. Now, there's some that would like to see a new building. I think it was $5.5 million for a new building, and remodel something around 3 million. So it's big numbers, however you look at it. And then the question is, how does that sit with priority of other projects like the Village Hall that needs work now? That, you know, since Logic is not one of the options, then what are we going to do with the facilities we have? The existing firehouse, Terry's needs upgrades there that need to be done. Personally, I think that's something we could get started on. And then, you know, the pool and Village Hall, more of a long-term vision of things. And so, but that's what we'll talk about on Saturday, hopefully, and have a little more guidance.
Remember a couple of years ago, we had talked about modifying the drop-off procedure at the pool. Would that be included, you think, in the pavement study, the pavement work?
Yeah, yeah, I've talked to Dane about that a couple of times. We've drawn up some exhibits for essentially just slight amount of widening kind of in this area. Doesn't take very much to be able to squeeze in essentially 2 car lanes coming around this location. It is tight, but it is possible. And you know, a foot or two of widening in a short stretch there kind of gets you there. So we did have some exhibits that drew that up, had some pavement markings to go with it, and yeah, you're right, that was part of a discussion a few years ago now. But I did chat with Tim about that a little bit, so if, you know, the scope was do the entire lot, should certainly be considered. Right.
It'd be another spot you could consider a green crosswalk if they can piggyback together and. Cause there is a crosswalk there now. Just something to bring attention to it.
Now,
Better get
where the trash barrels are, where it says 26,000, all of that pavement back there is all in good shape? Is that the reason we're not
Yep.
dealing with that?
Yeah, that was done, I don't know, 5 years ago probably.
And this portion in red here was done last year.
Right. Is there any, as far as this drainage that you mentioned down at the bottom there, Terry, is there a street drain down there, or is it, do
Yeah,
we need to
that
put some more curb and
That
gutter in
brown thing
there?
right there.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was
Yeah.
wondering. So,
Yeah, that'd be something Tim and his company would have to shoot some grades. It might possibly be, we'd have to add another inlet where he's got the red circled and pipe it to that other one. I don't know if you've done any grades over there, but
Not yet.
it used to drain better than it does, so it has Ian thinking it could drain again with proper grading, but the puddle, when I started, was this big and now it's 50 feet long, so there's definitely some settling going on there. So.
Yeah, kind of, to the eye, it looks like if you were to reconstruct it all the way back to this point, then you would be able to pick up enough grade to get it to hit the curb and gutter that's in this location already. But as Terry said, you know, want to shoot some grades to be 100% sure there.
okay. Yeah, it's really all gonna depend on the scope of the pool project. and time of the pool project. Okay, any more questions for Tim on those 3 projects? More to add, Tim, anything? Doing fantastic and
In the engineering room?
in the engineering world we should know about?
Nothing, this is kind of what I had on the docket for the moment, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we put you on the spot. Okay, well, let's move on then. The next thing I have is, Terry, I think you had sent me something on winter parking rules. Did you want to speak to that or?
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to get everyone's feelings. Do you think the village should have some kind of winter parking ordinance, or is everybody happy with the way it is? We currently have nothing. In the past, we put out a request through Nixle. Hey, if you can get your car off the street, it would help the crew out, but there's nothing enforceable right now. And I don't know how, if you guys are in favor of doing something, I obviously am. It's a pain in the butt to plow around all these cars. And I get it, everybody wants them out of their driveway so their contractors can do their driveway and, you know, I get it. But we end up going 2 or 3 days later after a storm and cleaning up after parked cars, and then we're filling driveways back up, and then I get phone calls and it's just a pain. So I don't know if there's some show for favoritism of it, like we'd have to come up with some wording. It wouldn't be anything I don't think we can get done for this winter yet. It would be something that would have to go to the board, probably for next winter, but the town I live in they don't do a snow emergency where somebody has to declare it, but if there's 2 inches of snow, then you have to be off the street. And I wouldn't say we'd have to be at the 2-inch mark. I was thinking we could do more like a 3, maybe even a 4-inch. It's just those bigger snows that are difficult for me and the crew. So I guess I was just looking for some feedback. It's never been brought up to my knowledge since I've been here. I just think it's been something, well, it's always been this way, let's keep going, so I'm wondering if anybody's in favor of some change. If not, I'll drop it and we'll keep doing the way we've been doing, but.
Any thoughts for Terry?
It's interesting because I was walking this morning and saw the cars with you plowed around them, and I was wondering why they were still on the street.
Yeah,
Um,
so I
now-
talked to the police, we do have a 24-hour, is all the longer you can keep your car on the street. But that cannot be enforced unless the police are chalking tires. So they can't go and say there's a foot of snow on that car. It obviously hasn't moved since the foot snow. That's not enforceable. They have to go around and still mark the car and then wait 24 hours. So if I wanted to push harder with the police, say this car's been here 2 days, let's get this chalked and let's get going with this car. I just haven't done that yet, but there's a few out there that haven't moved since the snowstorm. When was it? A week and a half ago already, so.
Are there streets that are worse than others?
Oh, for sure. And that's why the village can't do alternate side parking, because there's so many streets that are just one side anyway. But yeah, you guys know, we have narrow streets. You start making a mound around the car, well, the next time I plow, I've got to move out that side of that mound, and pretty soon, yeah, the streets.
Then they get mad and you're thinking that you're plowing them in.
Yeah,
I think it'd be a good idea.
Yeah, I support it. I mean, I think I don't park on the street that often. I think every house has a driveway in Shorewood, right? Are there houses without driveways? So there's a place to put them. And I think, for me at least, it's very important to hear your perspective. Like if I hear that is making your job harder, I would
Yeah.
support a measure that would make your job easier, especially because people also, I'm sure, get really mad when the streets aren't fully plowed quickly.
well, for sure, and for sure, like a neighbor, like, well, it's my neighbor's car parked here, I can't help that, but it's affecting my street, so.
And it seems like a pretty common thing to have some sort of winter parking regulations. Seems pretty standard to me. I guess, how would it work? I also, shovel my driveway. So I don't have to worry about like a service coming and needing to have the driveway clear. So I guess, would it be like certain times of day that the cars would have to be off the road?
Yeah, so the way, I live in Sauk, the way our ordinance is written is, you have to be off the street for 2 inches or more. As soon as the street's cleared, you can go back on the street, essentially is how it says.
Yeah.
So, the private companies are always out there early too. I mean, and we always usually start about the same time, so I get that's why people don't want their car in their driveway, because I'll say Barnes to come clean my driveway and then I can get my car away, but we coincide at the same time, so. I think that's been the backlash in the past, is that complaint there.
Do you think these are people that are pulling their car on the street like the night before? the
Right.
snow comes?
So they can have their driveway cleared.
Yeah. I would think it's a lot of people that have no idea that they're causing you.
And that could be, because the few times in the past when we've declared, not declared, but when we nicely asked, can you get your car off the street? It's far less those plowings, like down to 2 or 3 in the entire
Right.
village versus. I think I had 12 and Craig plows the east side, he had 8 the other day. Which doesn't sound like a lot, but we only have 8 streets, so it's a car every street, right? So.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the overall, like, impacting the overall safety of the neighborhood seems more
Yeah.
important to me than.
There'd be a lot of
individual's
questions with
driveway.
it. Should we enforce it on Marshall Court? That's probably one of our worst streets for parking. Where do all those people go? The police chief suggested if we did something, we'd have to offer an alternate parking spot. I don't know who would take advantage of that. The most ideal spot would be the pool parking lot. Hey, you can park here overnight if we get snow. Who's gonna park their car and then walk to their house, wherever it may be? I don't know if that's necessary, but something police chief suggested, and
That was my question about the non-residential buildings. We have the apartment buildings. and
Yeah.
We have Marshall Court. Does that pose any different problem? You're mentioning Marshall Court.
I mean, for us, we would love no cars on Marshall Court during a snowstorm, because that's absolute worst street to clean up later. It gets no sun down there. I'm getting calls all the time from the dental people. We're getting parking tickets now because we don't have enough parking spots. So we go down there, try to clean it up, but then by the time we get their cars and move back. So ideally, I would love to say no parking on Marshall Court, even if we could do 6 to 8, I'd have the crew come in an hour early to clean up Marshall Court. We've done that before. The police have posted no parking, in the middle of winter when we get a lot of snow. And that works, but
Wonder, do there tend to be open spaces in the parking lot for that strip mall right there?
yeah, I don't think that would be a possibility.
They're trying to get the parking lot cleared as well.
Yeah,
Right.
they've been pretty
That's a
picky
problem.
with parking in there with us. So, all things to talk about. Like I said, I don't think anything will happen this winter, so, I was
Can we
gonna
do
see if
something-
Bob would want to bring it up at the board and discuss with them
No,
their
I
thoughts.
I
and-
think we ought to, it sounds like everybody thinks it's an important issue. We should talk about it and maybe come up with at least a draft or something, maybe not, an action item for the board, but perhaps maybe a page summary or something and some thoughts about it. And it could be an item of discussion by the board, and we'll probably send it back down to us and, you know,
Yeah.
come up with a recommendation. Maybe we could come up with some, what different towns do as far as their policy. And then obviously identify some of the pros and the cons. Yeah.
Can we do something in the meantime as well in terms of like educating people? Like, I feel like.
Well, that could be the other part of it.
Put it
Yeah.
Under the water bill, like, hey, this is causing a problem, like, a lot of people might not know.
So my next topic is, we could lead into that, is I'm thinking about starting a Public Works Facebook page. Just to get some knowledge out there, that exactly, like, hey, this, if you can get your car off the street, it would help us tremendously because of this, this, and this. I'd love to put some examples of good leaf piles and bad leaf piles, and hey, we're flushing hydrants on this quadrant of town today. If your water's cloudy, run the water, you know, things like that. I've been looking at like Middleton's and Wanakees, and they just have a lot of good information on there. Ice skating rink, just there's all kinds of things I think we could communicate. I guess my question is Facebook even used by many people? I don't know. I don't use it. I know the police have a Facebook page, and I think Jamie said they have like 3,000 followers or something. So she thinks it's looked at, but I guess I wanted your opinion on that. Is that worth my time? Just try something.
Yeah.
See how many people will get to subscribe.
I mean, I wonder about just posting on an existing Shorewood Facebook page already, right? Because there's the like official one, there's the residence one that I know people use quite a bit. And is
Okay.
there a separate police one? Is that what you're?
There's a
I think the
separate reason.
resident one is more for, you know, do you need a babysitter? I'm giving away a queen size bed.
Right, I mean, yeah,
And I don't wanna have to send out a nixle for all these little things.
Sure.
People are just gonna get nixle overloaded and.
Well, we could ask Austin.
yeah, I was gonna
Austin
say
is
he's the moderator,
administrator.
right? And so I know that, and it's not a huge group. I left Facebook, so I'm not on it anymore either. but
Yeah, and
I did get a lot of info there, and when there was sort of like village information, that would be like the place I got it. So I don't, that's just anecdotal, but.
so that's my question. Is it worth my time if 20 people are gonna look at this? No, right?
Mhm.
So if it's not gonna go anywhere, then I guess we'll have to think of something different, get more info on the website or something like that, but.
I happen to be on the comms committee as well, which we're meeting on Thursday. So
All right.
I might take it there, Terry, and
Perfect.
what they think. There's a survey brewing. You're all gonna get a survey soon about the village and how the village communicates and what the villagers, the residents value and whatnot. So that'd be something very cool.
Yeah, yeah, if you wanna bring it up to them and see what kind of,
As an interim suggestion, when you know there's gonna be a lot of snow like we had last, is it possible the night before, let's say the police says they're doing their patrolling, if they see a car, to knock on the door and say, hey, would it be possible? I mean, just as an interim till we resolve
Sure.
it. So this year, because we're having a lot of snow, so.
yeah. I guess I don't know how the police would wanna handle that. I mean, it sounds like extra work, right? Obviously, and so I can ask them, but I almost think maybe for the interim, just do like one blast and say, you know, just for the winter, if you can do something, or
Or like, I don't, what are the rules of putting a flyer on a car?
I don't know, I can check into that.
Like on someone's windshield, I don't know.
Yeah.
They do
And that's the
it
thing,
very
it's not the same
fast.
cars all the
I
time.
didn't know.
Yeah, but I mean,
So-
just generally, even before a snow, of just like cars on the road, like, just so you know.
Yeah. All right, yeah, that's all I had, I guess.
Maybe, maybe we can just, obviously on the snow issue, the parking issue, we can discuss this more and some of these ideas like this, we can kind of float these. And
Yeah, I forgot all about the communications,
Yeah,
team.
And maybe
So I think
that
that'd
would
be
be,
a good-
maybe through communications, we could reach out to the public and say, you know, indicate that this is a problem. And, you know, it's having an effect on our crews and, you know, how can we communicate with you to
Yeah.
help get this done without being punitive?
right.
Is there, so perhaps that's something that you could bring.
Yeah, like my neighbors, I know they have a driveway, but it's a single car driveway, the first part. And sometimes, you know, she might arrive later and if whoever leaves the first in the morning, like leaves their car on the street sometimes. I know that's what they do.
Yeah,
And they're probably not even considering that they're actually, you know, causing problems for your crew. You know, if they knew, they would probably be like, oh yeah, we'll park it on the driveway, no problem.
All right,
all right. Thank you, Terry. Well, the next item I have here is committee structure and priorities. And we talked about this a bit the last time we met. When I started on this committee, I just kind of took some of the different projects I think Rob had identified with you folks to try to go through those and see where everything was at. And it's been expressed that Rob had forwarded maybe a broader agenda of how the committee should operate. And I thought maybe we could talk about that tonight, but Rob's not here. I'm very open to do however you guys want to operate this committee. My attempt was more to find out what everybody's interests were and beyond what our engineer and public works chief want to discuss what people thought were important issues for the committee. So I don't know if we want to hold on to this and see if Rob is in fact going to be on the committee. But or if you folks have any thoughts, I'm all ears.
It would be
Maybe that was too vague.
Well, I would be interested in hearing what Rob has to say. I guess I wasn't at the last meeting, which was in September, I think,
Yeah,
if this was spoken about then. So I mean, it feels pretty broad, so I kind of don't know like where to start. So I'd be happy to
well,
wait.
maybe
if
that's
it
what
would
we
be
need to
helpful.
do
Yeah.
is take this. So, you know, trying not to be redundant, but when I came on the committee, Rob had written a bit of a summary of what the committee had done. And he had these list of bullet items with, you know, for example, the village traffic speed control and reduction documentation with Tom's name after it. And so I thought, well, I don't know what all these topics are. I'd like to, you know, that's why I asked each of you to maybe present a little something. So it would bring me up to speed on really what the priorities are. And I think at our last meeting, I got more of a sense, well, Rob had a broader agenda than that. And so, and if that's the case, and we want to follow this broader agenda, that's a-okay. I just wanted the committee to follow what the committee wanted to do as far as how to structure this, how to set priorities. And I mean, we don't have to resolve this tonight, but I thought if Rob was going to be here, he could give more his perspective and then we could decide on direction, but we can kind of wait and see till next month unless you folks have any thoughts on that.
Well, I'm curious to hear your perspective on what you see as priorities and agendas that are important to this community.
Well, I think it's everybody joins the committee because they have, there's something about the committee that intrigues them that they'd like to see done. And I think we have a diverse group of people here that, I mean, obviously, or it seems obvious to me that traffic is an issue for you. Bicycling is, and that is the interests of Tim's and the bike lanes with Bob, et cetera. And I think all of those are important and issues that are current and relevant. So, I don't have an issue with it. Maybe I'm fussing over this too much. I wanted to make sure I was going in the direction that you folks thought that we should be going in, that's all.
I wasn't playing
No, I
an
know.
issue. I was just curious, as you took over as chair, if you had any visions about what you thought was important in relationship with all the other conversations you had.
Well, I think that all of these are important issues as we move forward. I think, for example, traffic enforcement, I think that with our new chief and she's gotten the message about patrolling and to me, I get the sense that that issue is less intense than it was and that we're making progress there. And so, I think that's a good one. I think, this whole policy issue and speed control, I think is fine that we come up with something. I think some of the bicycle issues through the village and stuff is very important, and we need to keep all that in mind as we make these physical improvements. And I'd rather be ahead of it than not do it when we have the opportunity and regret it later. So I really don't have a priority list. It seems to me we're addressing stuff. And
I
as
think
it comes
it's
along.
working quite well. I think this is a good forum to talk about a variety of topics. I think we all have the opportunity and ability to put topics on the agenda. Yeah, I think it works quite well, actually.
Well, that's great to hear. I just didn't want to be an impediment to ideas or directions that people might have. I want you to speak up.
Maybe once every 3 or 4 months, we can just kind of list, all the topics that we've come up with. And then prioritize what we're gonna work on for those next couple of months.
That's a good idea. Yeah, to kind of keep us on track.
Mhm.
All right. What do we see then? Should I try to come up with at least an initial draft list of what, or maybe just a laundry list, and then maybe next time we can kind of say what are those, what are the priorities, and add to it if we want to, or take things off the list?
I think that makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I will do that between now and the next meeting and get it out to you well before, and then it's something we can talk about as well as to you guys, yeah, okay. Any more on that? Okay, we will move on. And so, Tom, this has been from the very first meeting that I came to. I wanted to hear about what, I've read what you put together. Apparently you've modified this somewhat, but
Basically.
maybe you could summarize this for everybody and kind of what you're proposing.
Well, to backtrack a bit, so we get into this discussion we just had. This was done in relationship to prior discussions about how we try to deal with things in a comprehensive way. So if we're talking about traffic, and it also intersects very much all this stuff with the other stuff that we're interested in. And again, this came from the earlier committee. How we develop a policy statement that the board can work with to deal with it as a comprehensive thing. We dealt with Lake Mendota earlier. That's a question I have where that stands. And in that, we realized all the intricacies of the village. That's just not Lake Mendota Drive. And this document was asked both by Rob, but then in the last meeting, we talked as a draft for us to have a conversation, and that's what. And the question you raised earlier, is it actionable? It is actionable in the sense if that's what we want to pursue. But anyway, so this was Christine and Rob and I met earlier, and then Rob helped somewhat with this draft. as a way of saying, how can we have a conversation about it?
And so that conversation you're talking about within this committee before,
That's.
and come up with
what I
some,
talked about.
and then going forward to the board with some recommendation of a policy regarding traffic calming, traffic reduction.
Now, I'm gonna emphasize this in the sense that you, if I'm correct in sort of the way I described the problem, it is not just calming. We've been dealing with calming. But we also need to think of that as also traffic reduction. One of the things that is added in this current draft, Rob suggested I get a hold of the crossing guards. And their comments were very supportive of the fact that traffic has increased, and a lot of that is through traffic. And so it's clear we already have that as a problem. And the through traffic is not through the main streets. It also is through the village. And we have multiple different, some in here, evidence. So while the main question is how to reduce traffic coming, using this as an artery to the university and back, it also affects the rest of the village continually. And we need to understand that, and it's going to get worse if this is correct.
Well, I think this is important because I think as we move forward on any of the infrastructure work that we do on our roads, we need to be cognizant of the fact that that traffic from the university and the hospitals is only going to continue to grow and affect us. And so having some type of policy, or at least have some kind of a document that is in front of us all the time to keep us aware of that. And maybe that needs to even go further and try to involve some of the university people in this. And because it is affecting them. And yeah, so I'm fully in support of it. And we can, and I guess I would say if we can get to the point that you feel comfortable with it, and some, or we all feel comfortable with it, that we've identified the issues, that we've provide some recommendations or direction, then it's certainly take it forward to the board, at least as a discussion item. Doesn't, or it could be discussion and action if we wanted this policy in place. I guess I would recommend that it would be, we take it forward to the board as a discussion item. We would discuss it, and whatever comments that we could come back and massage it, or take into account those comments from the board, and then go back with an action item that this ought to be adopted as our policy for traffic reduction, traffic calming, however expansive you want to make it. Does that seem reasonable?
That's to me.
Do we want to discuss more? We certainly have time. We're moving right along here. I think we get towards the end of the agenda. Yeah, we're towards the end, so I guess, do we want to talk more about the specifics of this? I thought it was nicely written. Incomplete.
I'll give you the new one, which is nicer because Rob
has put his mark on it. Okay.
And the last part, then again, what's the copies you have has the comments. I just copied the comments. Oops.
Sorry.
No.
It's a tripping hazard.
On the crossing guards. I didn't realize this, but there seems to be a lot of cars coming in as well to the school from outside the village. I didn't realize it.
Yeah, I know a number of families who go to the school and they don't live here. And that could increase because school enrollment it's been under enrolled for a while now.
Yeah, they'll assign more outside the area kids.
Yeah,
right?
and so people want to go to school here, so, yeah, you definitely have that.
I focused on the comments only related to where it's very noticeable to know which cars are going through, which have university parking. I mean, there are people in the village like myself who have university parking. So the comments here are related all the comments they made about cars not coming in to drop off kids and then going out, because that's has to be, but it has to do with the using the inner streets, because if they're going by the school and the school guards are noticing them, they are going through the interior show, but they're not using Lake Mendota Drive, and they're not using Shore. They're using other streets to get.
Well, a lot use Oxford and then drive right by my house and turn on. I mean, I see it every day at 4 o'clock, and there's probably, I'm gonna guess, a couple hundred cars if you go by during that period, and I'm sure a number of them are people commuting down Lake Mendota Drive to turn up on Baker, Capitol, or whatever to get back out to Skirt Party University.
I'm curious, I think it's come up before, but do we have any authority to say no through traffic for non-residents or non-guests? Like, do we have that authority? I've seen that in other places in this country, but I don't know what the rules are.
I think that we would have to be a gated community, yeah, wouldn't we?
Generally, yeah, that question has come up to our office. It's been posed to our office by other communities that we've worked in, and we're not super aware of where you can do that as sort of the village, if you will. Certainly if you were like a private gated community, then absolutely it'd be easy to do it that way.
Okay.
But it'd be kind of difficult otherwise as a kind of public right of way situation.
You can't say, for example, no through traffic during rush hours, for example. You're saying that, or are you saying something different?
It's hard to define enforcements, right?
Oh, I'm not talking about
Define.
enforcement.
Yeah,
Because I
just
don't
can't
think.
get that. That's sort of a separate issue, but I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, but I think that would be a little bit tricky. We have not seen it done. And we've
Is it
seen,
legal? That's my question. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
we've seen legal, I'm not a legal expert by any means. But we've seen legal experts advised against it, I guess is probably the best way to put it. From that end, so.
Do you hear about
Probably the only recourse we have would be to decide whether or not we want streets one way or not, right?
I think
The
that's
detour. But then that's an inconvenience for the residents, so I guess that comes down to what's the lesser of the two evils.
Right.
I'm with Christie. Around the country, you see, and not only in this country, people put restrictions on when their cars can be through. So you're not making it a gated community because you're allowing cars in and out, but you're saying this isn't a through street. And I think it is, if it's legal, Brian said this to me, it's the cheapest thing to do, an experiment to see if it works. It's very simple he thought it was very simple to do because I spoke to him.
So you just put a sign up that says no through traffic, or how do you get that across to the drivers? I guess I'm
You
not.
put signs up. Now, it seems to me, and if that was a route we would take, it would be, I would want to talk to the people at the university to include university houses.
Right.
If they didn't want to include it, then we would put signs up saying when you get, but that's their choice. It seems to me also the people who live in the streets and Lake Mendota Drive West going to Madison would also want that because those cars are coming in through them. All those left turns are coming in through Madison Street from Capitol or even further down. And I'm sure they would support it. But again, my understanding is, and again, I'm not a lawyer either, that we communities have the legal right, but again, it needs to be checked, to say there's no through traffic. Now, the practical problems are, of course, you can't have a police person all the time there. On the other hand, if you look where we do it, this is, it's in here, but like Wood Lane, 99% of the cars don't make the illegal turn. They go down to Edgewood and they make most people are law abiding. So if you have 80% of the cars that are going now through the village, not coming through the village, because you put the signs up, you're a winner.
And can I add to that a little bit?
Yeah,
Because
please
I
do.
think that something that seems to come up a lot when we're talking about how to slow people down and reduce traffic. Very often, whatever suggestions come up, people inevitably say, well, you know, we can't make the speed limit 15 because people will speed anyway, or you can't have the small speed bumps because people can still go fast over it. And I think when you look at traffic calming and speed reduction, it's you do a whole bunch of things at once and no one thing is, you know, clears up the problem. And so, yeah, I agree that people are law abiding if they see a sign that says like you're not allowed to go through here during these hours. I do think a lot of people would follow that. And I think it could be, if there's any legal way to do it for a certain period of hours, I think we should consider it. Especially if it is like just rush hour, then it's really not sending a message like this is an exclusive place. Like this is a place we want to be safe. And then you could really do a communication campaign with the university, right? Where representatives from the village are going to employee meetings and talking about, you know, whenever they're getting, I don't know, their parking permits or like whatever orientation they're getting, like this is a rule, right? And if you're found in violation of it, it will be reported to the university. You know, I don't know, something like that.
Well, I think that's a really good idea with because everybody has a parking permit, right? So to work with the parking people and get information out, if we came up with a policy or signage to discourage that, we could ask that that's handed out with every permit.
I think that would reduce, I don't think these are bad people. I think these are people trying to get to and from their jobs.
Right.
And if they are allowed to do it, like they're not, if you don't live here and you're not experiencing that walk and like, you know, cars driving really quickly, you don't necessarily know.
Well, I think it's something we need to think through. You know, if you just put no through traffic at the beginning. I mean, I know for myself, if I saw that, well, what does that mean? No through traffic through where? You know, we'd have to come up, I guess my point is we'd have to come up with sort of a communication sort of system or strategy to be able to get the message across to people somehow in a simple way.
Put it at the bottom of Oxford.
Yeah, for example.
Yeah. Can I make one more comment about this, which I think I'm right. If you make it a legal, that is the board passes that no through traffic, then you can notify Google and all the other apps. So they're not on the app because this now will show up. If it shows up as a route and you eliminate that also. But
It's a good idea. Yeah. All right, then it sounds like we need to make this more official.
whatever you think is appropriate.
Well, I would ask everybody to take some time and really read what Tom and Christine and Rob have come up with, and mainly Tom. And let's do some edits on it and thoughts about it. And next month we'll take some more time and talk about it. And everybody's had a chance to really look at it.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
If we're done with this,
Sure.
what's happening with the speed humps?
Well, the last I communicated to staff, to Brian Mooney, that he had asked for a list of things to go on the CIP. And, you know, couldn't have happened in 25. It would have been for 26 or beyond. And I had put the speed humps on there as a request. And I don't think it made it to the final CIP. It didn't come, or at least for 2026. So that would be something, that would be a question for Brian, and I'm sure he had discussion with the rest of the staff and how to prioritize that. Because there's obviously too many things on the list that we can fund everything. So they had to set some priorities.
This is my question then, it's a matter of procedure. Is this first a matter of the Board of Trustees to say it is a priority rather than the administrator to say it's a priority?
We can go back to the board and ask for specific action. We could, what I had done was to go to the administration first. And that and to see if it would rise to the top, because my guess was that's what the board was gonna do anyway. They were gonna, if I brought it forward for an action item, they were gonna vote on it without getting input from the administration. So I think since it didn't make it to this 2026 CIP, that maybe we go back with it to the board.
Okay, I'm just, because it's
Yeah.
been, as you know, it was 2 years of discussion.
Right.
As well as now, 6, 8 months since I think we, as a committee, passed it. And the problem's gonna the problem isn't being solved. And this is one of the multiple things that will have to be done.
So is it your feeling then that the traffic enforcement that Jamie has more proactively engaged in is not working, or that it's not enough?
There's no way.
That's just a question.
No, and I'll answer it as honestly as I can. It's been really nice to see them enforcing it. And I actually wrote her about it. But they can't enforce it efficiently. It's impossible unless you put an actual policeman. For example, they will be there early in the morning or late, but then you have the middle of day cars going. On the weekend, a football game is unbelievable, the traffic. And they just don't have, they can't, it's not sufficient. It's important that it's being done. But it's as a traffic calming, it's not, it can never be sufficient for the village.
You, obviously, 5 humps at $20,000 a piece is, $100,000. It's a significant amount of money. So I'm sure that was part of the concern as well. What are your feelings is it an all or nothing sort of deal? I mean, you think if we could get
If you can do the
$20,000 may be more palatable than $100,000, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I'm not saying that's gonna be the only decision
Here's
factor. I'm just wondering, from what all you've looked at, would one help if we tried for that rather than trying to go for the whole enchilada?
Well, I don't know about the whole enchilada, but here's how I would think of it. The full stop at Itch Hill has, for me, this is mostly observation from walking, does slow and stop cars. And they do pick up speed going, this is going east to the campus, and that's what I'm talking about. The stretch from Sumac, the end of the golf course, that's a stretch.
Yeah.
And if you were asking me if you were gonna say, okay, let's divide it, I would do not one, because one.
It's too much distance.
It's a long, straight stretch. And unless you put the 3 in, it would be sort of like Play-Doh. No. So I would say 3 and 2. So 1 year, 3, and then we'd have to speak to the neighbors if they think on the east side, if they think the full stop has helped sufficiently. I'm not sure they will say that. And whether it's still needed. But the full stop sign was a very good move, I think.
Well, I think we don't have any more opportunities there because we don't have any more intersections, right?
That's it. I mean, yeah, that's a very good, because it's also, if someone doesn't stop, they could get blinded because of the way that the road meets. And so it's a good place to put a full stop sign, I think, again.
All right, well, why don't I go back and I'll talk to Brian and see what the situation is, and maybe what the next moves are.
And that's also, it's also a traffic reduction, because by putting it up, you'll also end up, I don't know how much, but some of the traffic will end up moving back to University because it won't be so attractive. Because they have two or three on Madison side already.
Do either of you guys have any thoughts about this?
My thoughts would be consistent in terms of, number. Yeah, on that west side, west of Sumac, one would probably not be super effective. You do see a lot of people speed up in between humps and whatnot, and definitely recommended in series if you're gonna do it.
And Lake Mendota is and this is the only place in the village being proposed to put speed humps, right?
At this moment, yeah.
At this point, is you see this as being the most problematic?
I guess we get kind of anecdotal reports, right? So it's kind of hard, I guess, from our office to know exactly what's going on unless you guys tell us otherwise. And certainly Lake Mendota Drive's risen to the top of discussion at this committee forum, and what's coming up.
Do the speed studies support that?
Speed
perception?
study wise, speed humps and speed study wise, the average speeds, as I think Tom is well aware, and the average speeds there haven't been incredibly high. They're higher than the village speed limit, certainly, but on a percentage of what this village speed limit is and what the actual average speed is, not super high. Speed humps, though, great at reducing the super far outliers. Those folks who are going 45 for no
85
reason.
and above.
Yeah, they're really, really, speeding well beyond what the actual speed limit is. Speed humps are quite effective at that. And, certainly for discussion, I think is still open what size speed hump those would be. I don't remember if the committee really circled around during that kind of recommendation of the board. We left it.
The
Maybe
recommendation was to follow what the city of Madison was doing.
Gotcha. So more like the 25-mile-an-hour essential design there for a speed hump, as we term it from an engineering standpoint, not the chill sort of 20-mile-an-hour speed humps and that, right? So from that end, I guess I would see folks you wouldn't necessarily 100% be guaranteed a reduction or a super significant reduction in your average speed. We'd probably see a pretty good drop in those super far outliers would be the.
Can I make one more point about, and I think that's the important thing is some people are really going fast. A lot of people try to keep the speed limit. But I think it was 2014 report said 55% of all the traffic in the village or through traffic, I don't remember exactly how it read, is Lake Mendota Drive. So it is it is the major artery.
Well, other than going down Highbury, it's the only exit to the west, right, of the village, so. But that is another, I don't know where we're at with that issue, there's been proposed thoughts about Highbury being one way to avoid the illegal right-hand turns, but, the downside of that, of course, is you eliminate one of those exits to the west of the village.
I think Highbury is a whole different problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about, again, it's a very unusual street of Shoburn because there's really coming in from the west, there's no access road until you get to Sumac.
Yeah.
And it becomes a speedway, and it also carries, again, I'm using a statistic, 55% of the traffic of the arteries accessing the village. Whether that's accurate or not, it's still a high amount. And you see it in the morning. I mean, I see it, when you see it in the evening when the university lets out.
Okay, one thing we have not done is looked at the village holistically and said, you know, how do we strategically place these speed bumps? Right?
Well, I
We
think-
haven't. Yeah, I'm not trying to minimize
No, no.
Lake Mendota Drive, I'm just, and that's kind of why I asked the question to Tim, because, you know, should we be looking at some of the other streets as well and take a broader look at this, where we might strategically put these speed humps to, because we don't want people, I mean, may solve it for Lake Mendota Drive, but then is that gonna push more traffic onto Oxford, for example? And so, I think it's at least worthy to maybe ponder that.
I think, well, we had, before you,
Yeah,
we had
I
this
don't want to
discussion.
plow ground.
No, we had this discussion and we don't need to have it now, but I think this policy is to do exactly what you're asking. To have a broader sense, and that's also where Brian was very helpful. He said, we have three classes of streets here. We have the major arteries, which I listed on here. And they come from Brian and not from me. And then we have those which, like Edgewood, which are the secondary, which I think at less than about 800 cars, but I don't know whether it's a week or not. And then we have the other streets. So part of thinking about where we do like speed humps, or we use other mechanisms to slow cars, is part of this discussion we have to have in a broader sense. But so I'm agreeing with you about the discussion, but I think at this point, unless I'm wrong, it's clear something needs to be done on Lake Mendota Drive.
All right. Well, I will talk to Brian about it, find out,
I appreciate that.
maybe next steps in regard to Lake Mendota. Is there any more for the good of the order? Anything else anybody else would like to discuss? I would like to move on, so Nicole has a chance to, maybe you're not moving on to the next meeting, but at least you get to drive home. Hour and a half drive home, so.
An hour and a half.
Okay, any future agenda items? Oh, I have in here traffic enforcement issues. We kind of talked about that. I just leave that as a standing topic, so we don't miss it. And anything else anybody'd like to see attached to the next agenda? The next meeting would presumably be in January. And
Maybe on.
Bob, I know you said you wanted to talk a little bit about you've done a little more work on some of the signage.
Right.
Maybe we can do that in January.
Sure.
Okay.
Locust, I know there's been a whole case about Locust in the past, right? The remodel of Locust. Is that something we can use, like have a look at? Like, how would that work? I'd love to see what the proposal kind of was.
Talking about the Locust Path.
Yeah,
Yes. We,
Oh,
I have, are you interested in the PDFs and the exhibits put together?
yeah, so again, just kind of to read up on it. I feel like that would be a real game changer for the village, but I don't know what work has been done.
I think we kind of, we're hoping for that safe streets money to be able to do something. Obviously, that's not anything, so we'll have to figure out some other.
Yeah,
You had brought, did you send me something, or maybe Rob sent me, there was some more grant opportunity. I know you're on top of some of this, but obviously, if you see something that we might be able to apply for that would be,
I don't think I sent you anything, not recently.
somebody sent me something.
Yeah, we've had our eyes on a couple of different grant programs that are out there throughout the communities here, through the state as well.
They are cost share typically, so we'd have to get approval through the board and I think with some of this money coming, if we could, I would really hope we could do something like that. I seem to remember a number, something in 300,000 to 500,000 to be able to do this. You know, if it was an 80% or 20% cost share, I don't know how much those, some of those are. The village and its borrowing could come up with $100,000 or $200,000 for that, I would think. So,
Yeah.
okay. Anything else? Do I have a motion to adjourn? A second? All in favor? Okay. Tom,
I'm not selling.
And Kim.
Here for us to, that's good person. Teach, introduction.
We're gonna send you the information.
Which is.
Make it all.
It's cross listed in.
Introduction. Something that we